08 La Folie, what do you remember about it?
What do I remember about '08 La Folie?
What do you remember about 08?
That's easy, actually. That was the second to last year that we, or the last year. Is it the second to last year?
Second to last year.
So I think that we packaged this like 3 times or twice that year, so it probably says it on the bottle which one. But what I remember about it, I remember that we would start at 7 in the morning, and that we would drink La Folie all day, and and that we were terrible at labeling.
Yeah, so we never knew exactly what was.
308. This is actually better than some of the other cryptic numbering systems that we had.
Yeah.
This is when we had this. That's good. What I remember about '08 La Folie is that, it was like probably in the heyday of us getting like our system down. The people that had bottled it were great. Everybody knew their roles, and we were kind of like becoming this machine. But I remember thinking that we had a lot of beer that we could make, and that our machine would not be able to keep up with it, and so we would have to make like a pretty crazy decision real soon, or we were going to have to start dumping a lot of beer.
It would take us 10 hours to do 30 hectoliters. Compare that to having 1,800 hectoliters worth of beer ready to go at any given time, right? Give or take. But got to the point where we realized we could produce a lot more beer. Now we can do 300 hectoliters, and the bottling runtime is 2 hours. So
500.
500. This is what we're going to do this year.
500 hectoliters we'll be doing for the La Folie bottling. Yeah. So we did 30 hectoliters in this bottling run, and we're going to do 500 hectoliters
this next bottling
for the next bottling run.
Which is the largest La Folie bottling run we've ever done.
And it's really fun to me because when people always say, do you miss like the old days of corking and all that? I'm like, yeah, sure. But what I love more than anything is when people tell me in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, that they bought a case of La Folie.
Yeah.
That to me is
getting in more places.
Yeah, I just think that, when people say, oh, I wish you still corked and caged it, but then they say that to me in Savannah, Georgia, and I'm like, you would never be drinking this.
It wouldn't last it. And
we would never be having this conversation.
Wouldn't make enough to even get that
right.
far. For
and
sure.
when we decided, like the decision in between corked and caged, like getting a corking line, and when we didn't have the money to get a corking line.
So we were going headlong into getting a large scale corking line. And to be able to do the scale that we wanted to was going to be, it was a couple $1 million. So we had other projects in mind. There was a keg line. The bottling line was coming on there. We wanted to revamp the can line. So all these things kind of took precedence over buying a big brand new cork line. Now I won't say that it's off the list forever, but for now we're fine. You don't want it?
Just me.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind it. As to where we would put that, who knows? But I mean, there's just everything's kind of surrounding that now. We've got so many other things going on. And, right now as we're doing it, it's successful. It's good.
Absolutely.
It tastes great. The beer coming out is probably better than it's ever been, in my opinion.
This is great, though.
Yeah, this is beautiful.
Yeah, what do you guys think? I mean, so is each blend, are you shooting for the same beer? Are you guys shooting for a new variation of La Folie?
What we do, so when I think about a blend, we go through and taste everything, and in my mind is as we go to, so say I know that we're going to make a beer in December, and you can start blending barrels up until that point to try to make the best beer that you can, but you're working with what you have. And so the idea isn't to make La Folie, the idea is to make the best beer that you can with the beer that you have. And so you're supposed to showcase, like, make the barrels look as good as they possibly can. And so whoever is whoever is just the star of the show at the time gets to be the star of the show. And so if there's like 2 barrels that are absolutely unbelievable and that you just could not believe 2 things could be so great, and then you usually do some fun yin yang thing and you just make them the star of the show, and then the other barrels are just supporting actors and actresses, and they're there just to boost up and make those look even better, add complexity, add layers, but never to make lawfully. Lawfully is whatever Oscar wants to be at the time.
It exists as it exists in the wood cellar. We're seeing a lot more uniform flavor profiles as the years go on out of all the barrels, but that's because they've just, over the years, they've shared so much, and they're all related
Natural
and
selection.
interrelated. Yeah,
Not homogeny through natural
yeah, exactly.
selection.
Yeah. So they share a lot of, we transfer beer from barrel to barrel to inoculate each barrel. So through doing that, we've created this commonality through all of them, which, shows up in the beer from year to year, of course. But by no means are we trying to duplicate exactly what we've done the prior year. As a matter of fact, it's much more interesting if we don't duplicate it exactly. A lot more fun that way as well.
Yeah. So to me, this is one of like the epitome of the sellable beer. Something I can store away and watch develop over time. The other ones that we've had from you guys, the Falling Rock Anniversary, Twisted Spoke. You guys want to talk about those beers at all? What you remember about them? Or?
Falling Rock, I'm still sorry, Chris Black. I did not mean to do that to your... we had to destroy all of Falling Rock's 10th anniversary.
Good portion of it,
Everything that didn't get... because I decided that we should have a maltier lawfully, and unfortunately I didn't know what the heck I was doing, and I changed the mash profile and made all these amazing long chain starches, sugars, and they got into the barrels, and when we bottled them in these beautiful champagne bottles, the Britannomyces just kept eating the long chains and started producing bombs.
There was some explosive bottles.
There was some explosive
The beer
bottles.
the beer was great.
Amazing.
The blend was beautiful, and
Chris, you did a great job.
The thing is about that beer is it was really, now looking back, but we can say this, it was meant to be consumed right then.
Yeah.
The blend was perfect. That beer had already been aged for years, and the blend was great. It's funny when you look back at the notes, the blend that we came up with separately, it was much smaller. There was fewer barrels, but then the blend that Chris came up with had so many different complexities.
Well, the thing, that was our blend off. The 10th anniversary was all 10 barrels. At the time, we only had 10 fooders.
That's right.
So it was 10 fooders. We had to use every
each,
one of the fooders in a different way, and that was a really fun thing to do. Twisted Spoke was even more fun. Mitch, you complicated little bastard, he had to make it even more complicated. And so he took Transatlantic Creek, Triple, Abbey, and then he took barrels, different Felix and some Oscar, and he blended all these guys together, and it was an absolute... I remember thinking that, as he was doing this, like when you're a kid and you start hitting the soda things, like making a suicide, I was like, oh my God, this is a suicide that I'm seeing. And then when I tasted the blend, it was amazing. And I think that the beer is, is like one of the better blends that I've had. I think he did a great job because he painstakingly did this. And I remember thinking that it would take him 15 minutes, and I think it took him like 5 hours.
Oh, yeah.
It takes me about 15 minutes to make the lawfully vintage blend. And it took him like 5 hours. I just thought the whole process was hilarious.
His ideas went outside of
what we were
thinking.
It was great.
Yeah.
Amazing
like
beer.
Bringing in Abbey and Triple and Transatlantic Creek.
He's a complicated guy.
Yeah, he's a complicated guy. That created a little bit more work for us, but when all was said and done, the beer was phenomenal. And really, when it comes down to doing more work and coming up with a beer that's
he's also
superior.
like a man that knows what he wants, and he I think he had this thing in his head the whole time, and he like blended exactly to this thing that he thought he was doing, and he's it's great, and we can't do that for everybody. And after those two, we kind of decommissioned the cork and cage, and so if we do blends, we do them keg only. at this point.
Yeah.
So those are kind of like the two that got done, and then now everybody was like, I want to do that too, and it would be our full-time job to do that, which sounds amazing to me, but
It's great fun.
alas, that pesky real job.
It's great fun. I will say this: the people that do get to do those blends, they are very complicated people.
They are.
They are very opinionated people. Rightfully
so am I.
Their beer is really.
And that's
good.
why we get along so well.
Exactly.
And that's why I call them my best friends.
Yeah, precisely. I would agree.
You guys obviously age a large amount of beer. I mean, in fooders.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a cellaring program here beyond that, where you're setting bottles aside, or anything like that?
Short of Lawrence QA stash, no, not really.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would you recommend if someone, they're going to the liquor store and maybe want to get into cellaring, and they see some new Belgian beers there? What would be your advice to them on beers or choices? I mean, I know you guys you've moved a little bit away from the cork and cage, but like you said, each year lawfully is its own masterpiece.
And we age it already for 2 years in the barrel.
So my censored opinion about cellaring New Belgian beers, and I only will speak about New Belgian beers because I really can only speak about that, is that I don't think that it's a great idea, because for our beers that we put out, like for Lips of Faith and things like that, they are great right then, the Brettanomyces aside. Everything else, so our Super Crew that we did, Abbey Grand Crew, Prickly Pear Saison, the Coffee Stout that we just came, they're great up to about a year, but they oxidize just like every other beer. There's a bottle conditioning that goes on. It staves off, it prohibits oxidation for X amount of time, but they're not meant to be cellared. Barley wines we don't make, and I really feel there's a huge need to, and really fun things to get out of cellared barley wines. I think it's probably my favorite and my only thing that I love to drink cellared. That being said, everything that we do at New Belgium is meant to be drank at that moment. Yeah, this is probably not. I'm probably the worst.
No, this is great. It's absolutely great.
But so for me, when I'm thinking about a blend, and we're sitting there drinking it, and we're like, 5% more of this, 7% more of this, no, like a new blend, and this 10% of this, 15% of this, and you get this perfect blend of these sour beers that have been in barrels for so long, and you perfectly blend this thing, and you want to give it to everyone as this blend that you're like, oh my gosh, I pretty much think this is it.
That's what we
This is the best that I could do.
Yeah.
I did this. We put it together, and Eric does all the amazing work of blending, and then I will see it on a shelf, or I'll see it in someone's cellar, and I'm going to go ahead on a limb and think that your cellar might look a little different than the cellars that I've seen. You probably actually have a beer cellar, whereas a lot of times when people have a beer cellar, it's like their linen closet or their garage. And when they're cellaring beers, or in their basement,
hopefully sometimes it's a basement,
kind of mildewy, and
very least.
I just have seen some things go really awry, and then somebody will pull out a La Folie, and it will be held, it's upright and like very dry climate, and the cork will have shrunk, the beer will have turned to vinegar, and then I get like, as if, that they're like, it used to be better. I thought it would be better, and I'm like,
It was better.
It was better,
Yeah.
I swear.
So there's a lot that goes into the treatment of beers that are cellared. When we do put out a beer, especially now, it's ready to go. That's where it is.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's what we intended,
Yeah.
Right, but
This is-
saying that,
this is beautiful. This beer has lasted. This has been in your cellar.
Yes.
This is awesome.
So I've had like recently about 4 or 5 2008s, and 4 out of the 5 have been great, and one of them was horrible. It was embarrassing, and
That happens.
and then I was like, I swear I just had one last week and it was great.
Like you
but
said, when the cork dries out, that's a problem. With these older beers.
and it's really good to understand the difference between cellaring sour beers and cellaring like say barley wines with a cork. The concept is when you create an aerobic environment for a sour beer, you will actually make the acetobacter very happy, and so you'll make vinegar. If you have a barley wine and you're trying to oxidize it to mellow it out, you'll do it very well with cork. It's a great thing to do. Use Russian Imperial Stouts with corks, fantastic. But creating that oxygen, that aerobic acidification environment is it's a treacherous. It's a little different to have to. It's Russian roulette. You'll have like 10 bottles, and this one is great, this one is great, this one is great, not great. Vinegar bombs, and a lot of times people only have that one, and they open it and they're like, sorry, I spent $20 12 years ago on that. And you're like, oh, me too.
Yes, I think proper storage goes a long way.
Goes a long way.
Yeah, laying a sour down on its side to moisten the cork. But you're right, letting oxygen into the right beers.
Right. I mean, you just have to think about what is the thing that you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And if the thing that you're trying to do is develop your own palette of flavors, that's great. But if you think that you're going to improve Armand's blend, that is not going to happen.
Yeah.
He is the
number one
master.
blender.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, like, you might want to drink that fresh and see what it is he intended.
Now, I always say buy two, so that you can drink it fresh. But at the same time, with the goose or lambics, where those bugs are going to mild, or you look at just a straight unblended lambic that will eventually carbonate and become champagne.
Right.
When it comes down to it, the basic purpose is to be able to enjoy that beer later as well. So, if you have something good, you want to enjoy with your friends.
Yeah, special occasions. Of course,
yeah.
And so I have this funny thing about corks and special occasions. When we started capping the Lips of Faith series, I remember thinking like, oh my God, this is like the end of all good things, like, oh, we're capping this thing, like, so cheap and tawdry, and then I remember going to somebody's house, and they opened the fridge, and there was like, an amazing beer geeky friend, and they have this humongous fridge, and in the back of the fridge there's just like corks in the very back thing, and then all in the front are all these caps. And so, they turn around, they look at everybody, and they're like, well, that person's here, and they're cool. Those guys don't know anything about beer. And they don't even look at the corks, and then I'm like, what the hell? Like, I want those beers, and they're like, no, we'll drink the capped beer. But it was a Lips of Faith beer, and I'm like, hell yeah, I want to drink that beer. And so, corks say, rate your friends. Tuesday is not cool enough. And you may never drink this, and it's just that weird thing. Everybody has that corked bottle, and they're like, and I have one. I have the master blender, the mega blender, and I don't know when to drink that beer.
Yeah, the Horal mega blend.
Yes, I don't know when to drink it. Like every time I'm like almost about to drink it, I'm like, and the capped beer, done.
Yeah.
Tuesday, yes,
and they're
great.
Cool. And they're great beers.
Let's drink it. So I don't know. It's hard to say. I go back and forth about.
They feel more special.
They feel corks are amazing to hear, but there's nothing less amazing to hear that you didn't make the cut.
Yeah.
Eric, any thoughts on cellaring New Belgium beer? Kind of heard from Lauren there.
Pretty much. I can't really think of a beer that I would say of ours to set aside, and especially with La Folie, the way it is now, the way that we intend it, and it's in a cap and it's ready to go. It's 2 years old at the very least right now. Anything else is, it's the beers are meant to be drank when they're produced.
So cellaring, sure. Drinking, yes.
Well, thank you guys for taking some time.
Cellar, thank you for sharing the beer.
Pour a little bit more beer so I can cheers with you guys.
This is pretty good.
All right.
You did all right, huh?
Yeah, it did great. Actually.
Yes.